The 2000s were a golden era. Back then, Hollywood could still make sports masterpieces like Dodgeball, a true underdog story. It blew up. The cast was right in their brightest years. Even Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor were this Hollywood dream couple back then. Then that decade passed. Everything faded. That marriage that once looked perfect started to crack. Some people in the cast went through illness, some went through addiction, heartbreak, and loss, and the wildest part is all of it happened in just over 20 years. Just over 20 years, and every face in this movie has changed so much they almost feel like different people now. So what are they like today? Who held on to the glow? Who struggled? And who is going to surprise you the most when you look back? Go ahead and watch the video and make sure you stay till the end, because I saved 5 of the most interesting behind-the-scenes facts about Dodgeball for you. Are you ready? Number 1, Vince Vaughn as Peter LaFleur. Let's start the list with our lead. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, Vince Vaughn was 34. This year he is 56. By then, Vaughn was already a very familiar face in American comedy, after Swingers and Old School, a really clear example of the kind of comedy leading man that era loved. But if all you remember about Vince Vaughn is some guy who always seemed easygoing, always seemed like he would come out on top, that is not really the full picture either. His biggest stumble came in 2018 when he was arrested in Manhattan Beach after a DUI checkpoint. By May 2019, Vaughn took a deal on a reckless driving charge tied to alcohol, got 3 years of informal probation, and had to complete a 3-month alcohol education program. Vaughn's love life got plenty of noise too. His relationship with Jennifer Aniston had the tabloids all over them, then the two of them split up at the end of 2006. But the next part of that story went in the complete opposite direction. Vaughn married Kyla Weber, had 2 kids, and kept family life pretty private. By the time he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2024, he showed up with his wife and kids and made it very clear that family is the most important part of his life. That is the part that really makes you feel how far time has moved. The carefree guy Hollywood once sold to the whole country now looks like a man who has lived past the noisy years and knows exactly what he wants to hold on to. What matters is that Vince Vaughn never really disappeared. In recent years, he has picked his roles more carefully, and he still has enough name value for Hollywood to keep wanting him around. And next we move to the guy on the other side of the matchup, Ben Stiller as White Goodman. Number 2, Ben Stiller as White Goodman. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, Stiller was 39. This year he is 61. At that point, Stiller was already a huge name in Hollywood comedy, not just as an actor, but also as a director and producer. A real power player. But if you look at Ben Stiller today, the biggest thing to talk about is not even the size of his career, it is his personal life. His marriage to Christine Taylor really did go through a serious rupture. The two of them got married in 2000, separated in 2017, then lived apart for years before finding their way back to each other. Later on, Stiller said pretty openly that there were times he did not think they would get back together, but he also never fully gave up hope. Then there was an even heavier blow. In 2016, Ben Stiller went public about the fact that he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer when he was around 48. He had surgery. And like he later said himself, the second you hear the word cancer, everything else gets pushed aside. White Goodman on screen is this ridiculous, arrogant jerk. But Ben Stiller in real life had gone through the exact kind of fear a whole lot of middle-aged men understand way too well. And that was not all. Stiller also dealt with Lyme disease after a stretch where doctors could not figure out what was wrong with him. His mental health was not exactly easy either. Ben Stiller has talked a lot about an anxious childhood and about feeling guilty that he was not always as present with his kids as he wanted to be. In recent years, people have started seeing him as a much more mature, much steadier creative force, especially through Severance. Good for him. And now we get to an important role right beside White Goodman, who is also Stiller's wife in real life. Number 3, Christine Taylor as Kate Veatch. Come on, admit it, Christine Taylor was the dream girlfriend type for a whole lot of guys in the 2000s. Kate Veatch is a classic role and her love story with Stiller looked like something straight out of a dream. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, she was 33. This year, she is 55. Back then, Christine Taylor was not some new face. She already had a place in Hollywood comedy, and with Dodgeball, everything looked full and bright, both her career and her marriage. But the more interesting part is what Christine Taylor's life looks like now, because it is pretty far from that image. While Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller kept getting mentioned in bigger Hollywood conversations, Christine Taylor stepped way back. She stopped showing up everywhere the way she did in the early 2000s. Not because her time ran out, she stepped back because her life changed direction. After she had kids, Christine Taylor said her whole world changed completely. She also admitted that every time she went back to work, she felt guilty about leaving her kids behind to go make a movie. And right when Dodgeball was happening, she was in the middle of that stretch of life. Which means behind Kate Veatch was not just a leading lady in a hit comedy, but a young mom trying to keep her balance between the set and her children at home. Her marriage to Ben Stiller is obviously still the thing people focus on with Christine Taylor. They got married in 2000, separated in 2017, then after years apart, found their way back together. But for Christine, marriage is not the whole story. There was another pressure, a quieter one. She has said herself that Dodgeball was one of the movies that made a lot of people start seeing her as somebody who mainly showed up next to her husband. For an actress who already had a name before that, that could not have felt great at all. So when you look at Christine Taylor now, what stands out is not scandal or some giant shock. It is the very clear change in a woman who used to be a standout leading lady in Hollywood comedy, then chose a slower, quieter life and put family ahead of the spotlight. Number 4, Rip Torn as Patches O'Houlihan. You remember Patches O'Houlihan, right? That was the most unforgettable supporting role in the movie, played by Rip Torn at 73. Back then, Rip Torn was not some random supporting actor thrown in for fun. He was already a real veteran of American film and television with a career that had lasted more than half a century, an Oscar nomination for Cross Creek, and an Emmy win for The Larry Sanders Show. His career was full of fire, but his personal life was never exactly free of noise. One of the most famous scars was his fight with Dennis Hopper. Hopper once said on television that Rip Torn was the one who pulled a knife during a clash from the pre-Easy Rider days. Torn sued for defamation and won. The court upheld $475,000 in damages, then also opened the door to punitive damages. That one story alone tells you Rip Torn was not the kind of man who would let somebody else rewrite his story. But the heaviest and strangest turn came very late in 2010. By then, Rip Torn was pushing 80, and somehow he still ended up getting arrested after breaking into a bank in Connecticut while drunk carrying a loaded gun, then telling police he thought it was his house. By the end of that year, he pleaded guilty to several charges, including reckless endangerment trespass and possession of a firearm, then got a suspended sentence of 2.5 years and 3 years of probation. Rip Torn died in 2019 at 88 from complications of Alzheimer's. Patches O'Houlihan on screen was pure fire, nothing like the dim and sad final stretch of the man's real life. Number 5, Justin Long as Justin Redman. After the most unforgettable supporting role in the movie, let's get to the youngest member of Average Joe's, Justin Long as Justin Redman. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, he was 26. This year, he is 48. Justin Long is not the kind of guy who had some loud public fall like Vince Vaughn, and he is not the kind of person with a private life full of heavy layers like Ben Stiller either. The biggest change with him is really in the way the public sees him. Back then, Long almost seemed born to play lovable guys, a little awkward, a little sweet. The kind of face that walked into a movie and instantly felt friendly. Years later, that same thing became the box he had to break out of. Some of his more recent roles, especially the darker and more unsettling ones, show that Justin Long is not standing in that same place anymore. He got older, sure, but more importantly, he stopped being Hollywood's boyish guy. In real life, Justin Long did not move through life on one totally smooth line either. The detail that really sticks is something he has talked about himself, an experience where he was drugged and kidnapped and then needed many years before he could really face that trauma and finally go to therapy. But thankfully, he got through it and married Kate Bosworth in 2023. By 2025, his image in the public eye had become that of a married man, a more private man, somebody who no longer carried that young energy he had in the Dodgeball years. That is what makes this section stick with you, not some giant shock. Just that very clear feeling that time has passed through this person and left a lot more on him than people realize. Number 6, Alan Tudyk, as Steve the Pirate, Alan Ray. Tudyk was born on March the 16th, 1971. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, he was 33. This year, he is 55. When the movie came out, Alan Tudyk was not the kind of frontline star general audiences would name right away, but he was already a familiar face thanks to Firefly: A Knight's Tale, and that same year, he was also in I, Robot. Put simply, he was one of those actors people recognized the second they saw him, even if they could not always remember the name. Alan Tudyk's personal life does not have any of those loud collapses or tabloid scandals. The biggest scar on his record showed up in his work instead. In 2025, Tudyk said that back around I, Robot, his role as Sonny, got a really strong response at test screenings, but then he got pushed out of the promotion. That is not a scandal, but it is a very Hollywood story. An actor does great work, audiences respond really well, and then somehow he still gets pushed to the side when it is time to hand out the spotlight. His private life went in the opposite direction. Alan Tudyk got engaged to choreographer Carissa Barton and married her in 2016. Recent pieces about the two of them all point to a life that is pretty private, pretty calm and very low on drama. With him, that is worth noticing because in a cast where a lot of people went through illness breakups or scandal, Alan Tudyk stands out as one of the few where stability became a very clear part of his image. Looking back now, Alan Tudyk is one of the people in the whole group with the steadiest career. He did not rise through some blinding kind of fame, but he built a really solid place for himself in both live action and voice work. From Rogue One to Resident Alien, and a whole line of major animated projects. That is the kind of career people appreciate more the more years go by. When Dodgeball came out, Alan Tudyk was a really strange and really memorable supporting face. Today he is a 55-year-old actor with serious range, a private life, and a place of his own that not a lot of people in Hollywood managed to hold on to that long. Number 7, Jason Bateman as Pepper Brooks. You remember Pepper Brooks, one of the tournament support roles, right? The guy who played him was Jason Bateman. He was born on January 14, 1969. When Dodgeball came out, he was 35. This year, he is 57. By the time this movie hit theaters, Bateman was not some new face. American audiences had known him for years already, from his child actor days all the way into adulthood as a familiar face in television and comedy. But when you look back at Jason Bateman now, the most memorable thing is not just how long he has been in the business. The bigger thing is that he really did go through a stretch where his life could have gone off the rails. Bateman later admitted himself that he lived way too hard for years, buried in alcohol and drugs through pretty much the whole 90s. That is not the kind of story Hollywood tells just for fun. That is a long enough stretch to wreck a man a marriage and a career if he does not stop in time. What gives Bateman's story real weight is that he actually did stop. The biggest turning point came from family life itself. Bateman said his wife Amanda Anka finally not being able to take that unstable lifestyle anymore is what forced him to look at himself. Men get this once they hit a certain age. Sometimes a guy does not change because of advice or because he is scared of losing work. He changes because he realizes that if he keeps going the way he is going to lose his home first. Of course, Bateman's public life was not perfectly clean after that either. In 2018, he got hit with a pretty heavy backlash over comments people felt were defending Jeffrey Tambor during the conversation around Jessica Walter. Bateman later had to apologize publicly. That was not the kind of fall that destroys a man's image, but it was a visible enough scratch to remind people that growing up does not mean you will never say the wrong thing again. Looking at him now, Jason Bateman has come a long way from those out-of-control years. He is still married to Amanda Anka, has 2 daughters, and stands in a very solid place in the industry. He is not just that familiar comedy face from the early 2000s anymore. He has become a man who held on to his family, held on to his career, and more than anything, held on to himself after almost losing all 3. Number 8, Gary Cole as Cotton McKnight. If you have been watching American movies for a long time, Gary Cole is probably the most familiar friend in the whole bunch. In Dodgeball, he played Cotton McKnight, one of the tournament support roles. Gary Michael Cole was born on September 20th, 1956. When the movie came out in 2004, he was 48. This year, he is 69. In the movie, he played Cotton McKnight. What really matters here is the man off screen even more. The tragedy in Gary Cole's life was not some loud Hollywood-style scandal. It was family. He married actress Teddy Siddall in 1992. They had a daughter then. After 25 years together, Siddall filed for divorce in 2017. Before that whole road could even be finished, she died in 2018. A long marriage reaching the point of breaking apart is already sad enough. This one ended with death before anything was ever fully resolved. Then Gary Cole married Michelle Knapp in 2021, and his career has still stayed very solid. In recent years, mainstream audiences know him a lot from NCIS, where he plays Alden Parker. That is the part that makes Gary Cole different from some of the others in this cast. He did not have some sensational collapse, and he did not have some huge comeback story either. He just kept going steady as ever through loss, through the weight of private pain, and still held on to his place in the business. Looking at Gary Cole now, people do not remember him because of one giant shock. They remember a man who went through sadness at home, carried a private life that was not exactly light, and still kept doing the work the right way all these years. His life was not completely smooth, but after everything, he still ended up with the kind of balanced life very few stars in Hollywood ever really get. Number 9, Stephen Root as Gordon Pibb. Stephen Root is the kind of actor people appreciate more the older they get. In Dodgeball, he played Gordon Pibb, a supporting role on the Average Joe's team. Stephen Root was born on November 17, 1951. When the movie came out in 2004, he was 53. This year, he is 75. By the time he showed up in this movie, he had already been working for more than 20 years. If you look at his personal life, Stephen Root does not give people the loud drama the tabloids love. He married Laura Joan Hayes in 1984, had children, then divorced in 1997. In 2008, he married actress Romy Rosemont. But the thing that makes Stephen Root really worth talking about is somewhere else. He almost never disappeared. From news radio to Office Space, then Barry Succession, Perry Mason, and voice work that has stretched across decades, he has just stayed there, steady sharp, never showy. People love talking about big comeback stories, but with Stephen Root, what is even more impressive is that he never needed a comeback, because he never really went anywhere. He just kept working year after year, and every time he showed up, people remembered that Hollywood still has actors who live on pure skill like that. Looking at him now, Stephen Root is still doing exactly what he does best. He kept voicing King of the Hill when the show returned on Hulu in 2025, and his work record keeps rolling right into 2026. That is a pretty beautiful now for a man with a career this steady. No giant shock, no loud public downfall, no stretch where he vanished and had to be rediscovered. Just a 75-year-old man still standing there, still working and still holding on to his value in an industry where that is never easy. And we are almost at the final name on this list now. Can you guess who it is? Number 10, Joel David Moore as Owen Dittman. Closing out this list is Joel David Moore as Owen Dittman. Joel David Moore was born on September 25, 1977. When Dodgeball came out in 2004, he was 27. This year, he is 49. When Dodgeball came out, Moore did not have the built-in glow a guy like Vince Vaughn or Ben Stiller had. He was one of the younger faces, and he was in that position where he had to carve out his own road from smaller parts. But the interesting thing is he did not stay there. After this movie, Moore kept going through Bones, then stepped into the Avatar world as Norm Spellman, a role that was not flashy, but was enough to keep him inside one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood. That is the kind of career path that does not make people gasp overnight, but the more you look back, the more solid it feels. Joel David Moore's personal life does not have the kind of loud scandal people love digging for in Hollywood. If there is any sadness there, it is probably just that one earlier marriage that did not last. In other words, Moore is not one of those cases who lived inside scandal or some public crash that wrecked his image. If there are scars, they are the quieter kind, the more ordinary kind, and way more private. Looking at him now, Joel David Moore feels pretty far from that 27-year-old guy in Dodgeball. Recent records show he has 2 children, and the pieces about his life now point to something fuller and steadier than before. He keeps working, keeps showing up, keeps holding his place. He came back in Avatar: The Way of Water in 2022 and kept going with Avatar: Fire and Ash in 2025. That is a kind of now that is not loud, but it is very clear. Joel David Moore did not turn into the biggest explosive star in this cast. He just quietly went a whole lot farther than many people probably thought he ever would, and honestly, that is a pretty fitting way to close out the cast section of Dodgeball. Some people in this movie gave the audience huge shocks. Some gave us really heavy tragedies. Joel David Moore gives a different feeling that some faces seem like they only passed through for a moment, and then years later, you look back and realize they quietly made it all the way through a very long road. And now, after going through all 10 faces from Dodgeball, it is time to open the final gift in this video, the 5 most interesting behind-the-scenes facts about this movie. And now, if you are still here with me, this part is really for you. We just went through 10 faces from Dodgeball and looked at what time ended up doing to each one of them. But like a lot of the funniest movies from that era, the good stuff did not stop when the set lights went off. There are a few behind-the-scenes details from this movie that honestly just make it feel even more like pure Dodgeball once you know them. Take the scene where Justin Long gets hit with the wrench. If you watched that back in the day and thought it looked suspiciously painful, that is because it really was. Justin Long's eyebrow actually got cut by the first wrench thrown at him. Most of the wrenches used in that scene were rubber, but the first one was harder than the others, so that moment where the audience was cracking up for Justin Long, it was not a joke at all. Then there is one detail that is even weirder, and honestly, once you hear it, it feels strangely perfect for this movie. Stephen Root once said on Rich Eisen's show that a lot of the people in the Dodgeball crowd scenes were actually inmates. Yeah, you heard that right, inmates. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more it feels like this does not make Dodgeball any less crazy. It just makes the whole world of the movie feel even more like itself. Christine Taylor gives us a totally different kind of behind-the-scenes story, less crazy, but very real. During filming, Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor had an 18-month-old child at home. Taylor was so exhausted she would regularly fall asleep between takes because she was also taking care of the baby. So if you go back and watch the movie and she still looks bright, polished, and right on rhythm, like nothing was wrong. Honestly, that is pretty impressive. And the last detail to me is exactly the kind of story that reminds you why early 2000s Hollywood used to be so much fun. Ken Marino auditioned for Steve the Pirate, and for the audition, he showed up in a full pirate costume. Just imagining that already makes me laugh. That is the kind of commitment to a part people hardly ever tell stories about anymore, and it is also the kind of detail that makes you understand why a movie like Dodgeball ended up with such a completely unique vibe. Looking back at Dodgeball, a true underdog story, it is hard not to feel at least a little wistful. The movie exploded when it came out, gave audiences those wild laughs, those ridiculous situations that went way beyond what anybody expected. Back then, Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor looked like the perfect couple. Charming, perfectly matched the kind of pair that made people go, yeah, that really is picture perfect. Knowing what happened later only makes that moment feel even more worth holding on to, warm and a little bittersweet at the same time. But it was not just the lead couple. The whole cast feels frozen inside a very specific stretch of their lives. Some went through personal upheaval, some went through illness, some just stayed quietly steady with the work, and all of them left something on screen. That mix of youth comic energy and the real-life stories behind it is what makes the movie more than just some passing laugh. It turned into a memory from a golden age of American comedy.